our country as it is, with 1 in 3 women having abortions, I realize that every single child born in today's society is truly a miracle. As much as I would love to tell you I've always stood up here and defended the sanctity of life, you know that's not true. I worked for Planned Parenthood for 8 years. I was an abortion clinic director there. I got involved with them in college. I went to Texas A&M University. Nobody, no fans. Okay, thanks for that. Could have at least pretended for me, thanks. Anyway, that is where I went to school. And I was walking around campus one day, and I saw a table that was drenched in hot pink. And that caught my attention because that's my favorite color. So I walked over to it, and this woman asked me if I was familiar with Planned Parenthood. I was not. I grew up in South Louisiana. I did not grow up around a Planned Parenthood. Now, I did grow up pro-life. My parents were pro-life. We were a pro-life family. They were not activists. We didn't sit around the dinner table and talk about abortion or talk about the pro-life movement or what it was to be pro-life. I do remember in high school saying that I was a pro-life person, but if you would have put me in a debate against someone who identified as pro-choice, I would have lost. Because it was something that we said as a family, but it wasn't how we lived. And so I met this woman. She asked me what I knew about the organization. I said I knew nothing. And she said, well, let me tell you about Planned Parenthood. She said, Planned Parenthood is the only place for low-income women to go to receive health care in the United States. The only place. And I thought, well, that's really sweet. That's really nice of them to do that. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know the plight of an impoverished or uninsured woman. I was very fortunate to grow up in a family where health care, where insurance was always available to us. So when this woman told me that they were the only provider for low-income women, I thought that was great because I don't know the options for low-income women. Why would she not tell me something? Why would she tell me something untrue about her own organization? She asked me what I thought about abortion. I told her, I was raised pro-life. And she said, oh, that's great. She said, pro-lifers are good people. But she said, they're just sort of misguided. She said, they just don't see the big picture. They don't understand that without safe and legal abortion, women would be forced to go where? The back alleys, right? And that would be terrible. Women would just be falling out, just dying everywhere, all over the street from these illegal abortions. We can't go back as women. We have to continue to push forward. Because if they take away our rights to do with our bodies what we will, then what right are they going to take away next? Are they going to take away our right to vote? Then what? Then all of a sudden, women can't wear pants. And I thought, well, I like pants. So I signed up immediately. And went to volunteer for them. And once I was in, that was it. You see, it's what I didn't know about the abortion industry. That's what led me in their doors. And I submit to you today that it is what women in this country don't know about the abortion industry that leads them into those facilities. See, when she told me that Planned Parenthood is the only place for low-income women to go, I didn't know that was a blatant lie. See, currently there are only about 700 Planned Parenthood facilities across the country. There are over 10,000 federally qualified health centers that provide comprehensive and primary health care to men, women, and children who are low income. That doesn't include county health departments, rural public health systems, hospital health systems, and it also doesn't include the tens of thousands of private physicians who accept government subsidy programs like Medicaid in their own private practice. So we're talking about tens of thousands of providers compared to 700 Planned Parenthood facilities. But Planned Parenthood's the only place that women can go. When she told me that, abortion is just a little teeny tiny bit of what they do, no big deal, at 3%. So I didn't realize that 3% actually equaled about 330,000 abortions every year. And that's just at Planned Parenthood. Annually, like Donna said, there's 1.2 million every year in the United States. Planned Parenthood is just simply the largest provider. They're the largest chain. When she told me that, without safe and legal abortion, women would be forced to go to these back alley clinics. See, I didn't realize that what took place in the back alleys is really no different than what takes place today inside of these supposed safe and legal clinics. Women are still hurt. The care is still shabby. And abortion can never be safe. A procedure that is only deemed successful if it takes the life of another human being cannot be safe. Ever. I don't care how clean the facility is. I don't care how wonderful your doctor is. If a person, a unique and individual, unique human being, dies during every single surgical procedure, that surgical procedure is not safe. Amen. When she told me that at Planned Parenthood we were here to liberate women, to empower women, I didn't know that liberation, that empowerment meant selling abortions to girls as young as 10 years old. I didn't know that it meant going into our public and private school systems and selling our graphic sex education program to kids starting in kindergarten. So that's even scarier, actually, because Planned Parenthood sex ed curriculum could be in your public school system right here. And you wouldn't even know it. Not unless you actually look at it. But see, I didn't know that. And so people ask me all the time, they say, Abby, how is it that you, this good Christian kid, I never got into much trouble that my parents knew about. I was an honor roll student. I was a good kid, church every Sunday, youth choir, youth camp. How is it that person somehow ended up running an abortion facility? How is it that person laid on an abortion clinic table, not once but twice, to take the lives of my own 2 children through abortion? Abby, how did that happen? And I don't have a silver bullet answer for you, except to say that it happened just a little bit at a time. Because that's the way that sin works in our lives. It's just one justification after another. One rationalization after another. And one day you wake up and you don't even know who you are anymore. But while I know that Satan has to sneak around to do his dirty work, I know that when God wants to change your life, it can happen like that. And that's what happened to me in the fall of 2009. 2009 had been a good year for me. In April of that year, I had been awarded Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year award. Thank you. I know you're all very proud of me. I'm just kidding. But I was very proud of myself. I worked hard at my job. I believed I was doing the right thing by working there. I believed I was helping women. That was in April of 2009. In August of 2009, things started to change for me pretty drastically. I had a budget meeting with my supervisor, and we were sitting in that meeting, and I knew that we always had an abortion quota, a certain number of abortions that we had to sell to clients every month, but we had never had a hard time meeting that quota, so it wasn't something I ever thought about. But this year, looking at our upcoming fiscal year, comparing it to the previous year, I noticed that there was an error on one of the line items. I thought it was an error. I noticed that the abortion quota from 2009 to 2010 had doubled. And that didn't make sense to me, because I believe that at Planned Parenthood we were trying to reduce the number of abortions. That's what I said. That's what I said to the media. That's what I said to my friends and family. That's what I said to myself. We're not about selling abortion. That's ridiculous. We're about reducing the number of abortions. That's what they say. And so I said this out loud to my supervisor, and she started laughing at me. And she said, Abby, why would we want to reduce the abortion number? That's how we make our money. So I don't know how I didn't see that. I mean, it was right in front of my face. I don't have an explanation for that, except that when you are immersed in sin, in evil, you can literally be blinded to something that is right in front of your face. And at the time, I remember thinking, is it that the organization is changing? Or is it that now I am so high up in management that I'm actually seeing what the organization has been about all along? And I think that was it. I don't remember how I justified that conversation, but I did. And about a month later, we had a visiting physician come in from out of town, and he was explaining to me that in his own private practice, he performed abortions a little bit differently than we did at Planned Parenthood. Let me just sort of explain to you how first trimester abortion is performed at Planned Parenthood. This is the standard protocol for any Planned Parenthood you walk into across the country. So if you walk into a Planned Parenthood in Albany, New York, or you walk into a Planned Parenthood in Tampa, Florida, seeking a first trimester abortion, their protocols are all the same. So we would bring a woman in, we would put her on the exam table. As soon as we got her on the exam table, we would give her sedation, because we didn't want her to start talking and asking questions. We would roll an ultrasound machine over. We would perform an ultrasound, and we only performed the ultrasound really for one reason, and that was to determine how far along the woman was in her pregnancy, so that we would know exactly how much to charge her for the abortion. We also wanted to sedate her before the ultrasound, because we didn't want to take a chance that she would pop her head up and see what was on that ultrasound machine. Because you see, the ultrasound exposes the lie of the abortion industry. It's not just a mass of tissue. It's not just a blob of cells. That it is a unique, individual human being with a beating heart. They can't afford for women to see that. The doctor would come in and he would begin performing the abortion by inserting graduated metal dilation rods into her cervix. And he would dilate her cervix just big enough so that he could insert something called a cannula. A cannula is like a straw. It's hooked up to the suction machine. And he'll take that cannula and he will just start blindly poking in and out of the woman's uterus until he thinks he has enough blood and tissue in a glass jar. That glass jar goes into a lab called the POC lab. What does POC stand for? Products of conception. What's a product of conception? A baby. But you can't say baby inside of the abortion clinic, so we said POC or POC, or if the staff was feeling funny, they said that it stood for parts of children. And inside that lab, there would be a POC technician, and her job was to take everything in that glass jar, dump it into a glass baking dish, and reassemble the parts of the baby. Now, why did we do that? Because if we left a leg or a hand or the spine inside a woman's uterus, she could potentially develop a very serious infection that could be fatal to her. After all the parts have been accounted for, the technician would then dump all of the parts into one giant red biohazard Ziploc bag. And all of the babies that were killed that day would go in that bag, and they would go into a freezer in our POC room that the staff jokingly called the nursery. And once a week, a company like Stericycle, a biohazard medical waste company, would come into our facility. They would pick up all the bags of babies, take them to their facility where they're incinerated. And that's how abortion is performed every day, day in, day out, about 3,000 times a day. And that was the only way I knew abortion to be performed. So when we had this visiting physician come in, he told me something that might be shocking to you, maybe not, but he said, you know, it's safer for the woman if the doctor can actually see what he's doing while he's performing surgery on her. Of course, right? I mean, we did the ultrasound, then we rolled the ultrasound away. So then the doctor would just poke around in the woman's uterus. He couldn't see what he was doing. So it's no wonder we have so many cases of uterine perforation where the doctor will just poke a hole right through the woman's uterus because he can't see what's happening. So I thought, well, if this is safer for women, then why aren't we doing this all the time? So I went back to my boss and asked her that question. And she said, well, using an ultrasound during the actual abortion takes about an extra 3 minutes of time. And our goal inside of Planned Parenthood was to have a woman on the table, off the table, abortion complete in 5 minutes. So we didn't have an extra 3 minutes of time. Time is money in the abortion industry. So I accepted that answer, but this doctor told me that if time presented and the right patient presented herself, that he would show me what this type of abortion looked like, and he said it would be a good learning experience for me. That time did come. I was asked to come in and assist with the abortion. My job was going to be to hold the ultrasound probe on the woman's abdomen so that the doctor would be able to, in his words, visualize his target. Now, just for clarification, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I am not certified in ultrasonography, I have no medical certification whatsoever. I'm a licensed therapist, so if you're having a crummy day, we can talk about it. But if you need some sort of medical procedure, I mean, I'm really not your gal, but inside the abortion clinic, they don't care. You just have to be willing and sit through about an hour-long in-house training where you are trained by someone else who is a non-medical staff member. And then they set you loose to perform invasive medical procedures on women. And I had gone through that training, and so I was standing there holding the ultrasound probe, and I was looking at the screen. We did the gestational dating. The baby was 13 weeks. Now, 13 weeks, are there arms and legs? Fingers and toes? Heartbeat? Brain waves? Internal organs? Yeah, everything's there. Outside of the womb, from head to toe, the baby's about this big. And we can even tell if it's a boy or a girl. Now, admittedly, I was standing there looking at that ultrasound screen, feeling apprehensive. I mean, because it really did look like a baby. I knew it wasn't because Planned Parenthood told me it wasn't. Now, okay, I have a 9-year-old daughter. I've only been out of the industry for 6 years. So I was pregnant with and had my daughter, Grace, when I worked at Planned Parenthood. Now, when I was pregnant with Grace, she was a baby. But she was a baby because my baby was wanted. If a baby is unwanted, then that baby magically becomes tissue, something to be discarded. So I was standing there looking at the screen, feeling nervous, but reminding myself that no matter what I saw up there, I knew one thing was for sure, and that was that this fetus, this POC, whatever, was not going to feel anything. Now, how did I know that? Well, because Planned Parenthood sent me a memo about it. The memo was titled, Answers to Tough Questions. The most frequently asked question I got from women seeking an abortion was, will my baby feel this? And we knew we had to have a really good answer because we couldn't look at the woman and go, well, maybe. Or, well, there's a possibility. Because that would be inhumane. So the scripted answer that we were to give, that I gave back thousands of times, was no, the fetus has no sensory development or does not feel anything for 28 weeks. I knew it was a lie. These women, they knew it was a lie. 60% of women who have abortions already have children at home. So we knew it was a lie. But we had to believe the lie because the truth is too uncomfortable. So I stood there reciting that scripted answer over and over again in my head, trying to reassure myself. And I saw the cannula in that suction tube. The suction wasn't yet turned on. I watched it go into the woman's uterus. I could see it up there on the screen, and I watched it get closer and closer to that baby. And when it touched his side, he jumped. And he began flailing his arms and legs as if he was trying to move away. But there was nowhere for him to go. You know, and there we were, with our machines, our medical technology, our education, our stethoscopes. And that little boy, he didn't have a fighting chance. But he did fight. The doctor asked the technician to turn on the suction machine, and he said, "Beam me up, Scotty." The suction machine was turned on. I guess people make the assumption that what I saw next was the worst part, that seeing a child become dismembered in his mother's womb would be the worst part. And that was bad, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that when I had the opportunity to do something, to intervene, I stood there. I did nothing. I mean, I remember wanting to yell out, "Stop! You're hurting him." I remember wanting to sit this woman up and to say, "Look what's happening to your child." But I didn't. I just stood there and I watched. I remember when I was pregnant with Grace, it was the first time I'd ever delivered a baby, and I guess just to freak myself out, I used to watch videos of home births. I don't know why I wasn't having a home birth, but anyway. I remember these women, they would deliver these babies, and the midwife, she would pick up the baby and she'd hold the baby up, and then she would just slap that baby right on the mom's chest. And I remember watching those videos and thinking, ew. The baby was all gross and slimy, and I told my doctor, now look, when I push this baby out, I need you to clean it up before you give it to me, because you. And she said, whatever. So then the baby did come, and I remember, that last push, that was the best feeling on the planet. And then it was like, right then, it was like my hands had little magnets in them, and they were attracted to her body. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could not get my hands on her fast enough. I mean, it was like I had to touch her, I had to hold her. I had to look at that face. And I remember that day. I remember after the abortion was completed, I remember I dropped the ultrasound probe. And I remember just looking down and looking at my hands. It was these hands that were the first to touch the body of my baby. It was these hands that held her as she nursed. It was these hands that patted her little bottom when she was upset and she needed comfort. And that day on September 26, 2009, it was these hands that helped to take life. Oh, how powerful our hands can be. How powerful our words can be. How powerful our lives can be. I went back to my office that day. I didn't know what to do. I remember sitting down and I started to pray, probably really praying for the first time in 8 years. And I was asking God, show me someone to go to. Show me someone that I can share this with. And for 8 years of my life, there had been pro-life people standing outside of my clinic, and they were praying for me. And they were praying for the women going in. They were praying for all of us. And I had developed a relationship with some of them. And they would always tell me that if I ever wanted to leave my job, that they would be there to help me. And I never thought that would happen. And that day I remember praying. I was asking God to show me someone, and there were two women standing and praying out in front of our facility, and I felt like God was telling me to go to them. And I thought, no, give me somebody else. But that was who he wanted me to go to. So I got in my car. I ran out the back door. I got in my car. I could have walked to their office because it was conveniently located next door, but I thought that would look suspicious. So I got in my car and drove the 50 yards. And I pulled in their parking lot. I called them. I asked if I could come in their back door, and they met me at the back door. And I went in. I sat on their couch, and I didn't know what to say. I mean, what do you say? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I mean, that doesn't seem like enough. And I expected them to look at me and to say, well, you know what? We'll help you, but you owe us a really big apology. Because I had not been the nicest to them over that 8 years. But you know what they did? They just looked at me and they said, "It's over. God has given you a new heart. You are a new creation in Him." And that's the person that we want to know. I decided that I would go ahead and resign from Planned Parenthood. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't have another job lined up, but I was lucky because I was raised in a home where I knew that if I trusted Christ, He wouldn't let me fall. And so I went back that day and I turned in my resignation to Planned Parenthood. Don't worry, I gave them a good 5 minutes notice. And I packed up all of my things and I was walking out, taking the last load out to my car. And there was a young man from the pro-life group. He was out there on the sidewalk and he was just making sure that everything was okay and I was able to leave without incident. And I waved at him and I told him I would be at their office the next day to see where I go from here. And he said, okay. And I got in my car and I pulled out of that driveway for the last time and I took a left. And that young man, he didn't know I could see him or that I was watching him. But I remember looking in my rearview mirror and I watched him. And he just put his arms in the air and fell to his knees. Because there had to be days where they looked at me and said, she's never going to leave. It's never going to happen. God, why do you have us praying for this woman? She's been here 8 years. She loves her job. She keeps getting awards and promotions and raises. She's never going to leave. It's never going to happen. And then one day it did. You see, friends, I'm standing in front of you today as a testament to the power of conversion. Because you see, no one is beyond the power of conversion because no one is beyond the power of Christ. Three years ago, I started an organization to help abortion clinic workers leave the abortion industry. It's sort of a hard sell, so I thought if we had 10 workers come to us a year, that would just be overwhelming, amazing success. Well, in 3 years, we've had 218 abortion clinic workers come through our ministry, and 6 of those 218 were full-time abortion doctors who put down their instruments and now fight for life. No one is beyond the power of Christ. Tomorrow, I'm speaking at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., and the president of Planned Parenthood Federation of America, Cecile Richards, is also speaking there. Funny, she doesn't want to talk to me anymore, but anyway, we will both be there on campus speaking. And I pray for the conversion of Cecile Richards every single day. And I was thinking this morning, as I was praying for her, I was thinking, one day, it won't be me on this stage anymore. One day, it's going to be Cecile Richards standing on a stage like this, defending the sanctity of human life. I don't think you really believe that based on your response. We better believe it. We better believe that our God is that powerful. Because I don't know about you, but the God that I serve, He's in the business of miracles. And they're happening every single day. And they're happening at the Pregnancy Care Center. See, we can talk about laws, and I so appreciate the legislators that are here. And I work very hard in pro-life politics. But you know what? My goal is not to make abortion illegal. I think we will. I think in my lifetime, I will see the end to legalized abortion. But that's not my goal. My goal is not just to make abortion illegal. My goal is to make abortion unthinkable. So that women won't even darken the door of an abortion facility. But when they are faced with an unplanned pregnancy, they go to the place that will give them life. That is my goal. And I believe that will only happen through conversion. That's what this center is all about. It's not just about saving babies, they do that. But it's about changing lives. It's about being a part of a paradigm shift to change our culture from a culture of death to a culture of life.
Amen.
And that happens through one person, one mind, one heart at a time. See, when we see a conversion of one person, that one person will then be responsible for the conversion of others. And those people will be responsible for the conversion of others. It creates a ripple effect across our society. And I don't know about you, but I've watched your politics here, and you guys have had an astounding number of abortion facilities close in the past couple of years. And I don't really see why Florida can't be the first state that is abortion-free in the United States. That wasn't very convincing. I believe that Florida could be the first state to be abortion-free. If we don't believe that, then why are we here? This center is on track. I was figuring up in my head, it wasn't hard math or anything, but I was thinking this center, as it is right now, they are on track to see at least 100 abortion-minded women this year. I say, I don't see why every single one of them won't choose life.
Right on.
They have the resources through this center. They have the prayers through all of you. Why not? That's what we need to be praying for, and that's what we need to be believing in, that God will do it. Now, in a few minutes, somebody, I don't know who, but somebody's going to come up here and they're going to ask you to give money. Because, let's be honest, that's why we're here. Planned Parenthood every year receives more than $500 million of your tax money and mine. How much money do you guys receive in federal? Nothing. Donna looks at me like, I don't even know what you're talking about. They don't receive any federal funds or state funds to help this center. They rely on people like you. The Bible says, wherever our treasure is, there our heart will be also. And if I lived in this community, this is where my heart would be. Because it's like the pastor said last night, there's a whole lot of organizations you can give to that do good things, that change lives. But this is the only one in your community that is literally saving lives. I can't think of anything more important than that. And not just saving the physical lives of these babies, but saving the eternal lives of the moms and dads who come in. That is priceless. So I want to encourage you tonight to not just give generously, but to truly give sacrificially. I want to encourage you to give as if life depends on it, because it does. It absolutely does. I want you to leave encouraged tonight. I've given you a lot of statistics that are unfortunate. And people come up to me and they say, Abby, I don't know if we're going to win. You know, they've got Bill Gates and Bill Clinton and stacks of bills. But you know what? I don't care how much money they have. And I don't care who supports them. Because we have the number one guy on our side. And that's Jesus Christ. And we have already won this victory. And we will win this battle. Thank you so much.